The Fontainebleau in Las Vegas is bleeding executives, money, and now federal scandals that were never supposed to reach public attention. A confidential investigation just got exposed by accident inside a government hearing. Jeffrey Soffer, chief executive officer of the Fontainebleau, had one move left. A move that sent shockwaves through the entire Las Vegas Strip. The Fontainebleau had already been through more in its first 2 years than most casinos see in a decade. But nobody was prepared for what Soffer did the moment the walls started closing in. The casino opened on December 13th, 2023. Cher was there. Tom Brady was there. Justin Timberlake performed a surprise set. The guest list read like a fever dream, and Soffer stood at the center of it all. 1 month later, the exits started. Senior executives began leaving at a pace that made the rest of the Strip take notice. Then the losses came into focus. The casino was burning through an estimated $400,000 per day. A gaming floor built to compete with Wynn and Encore was sitting quiet in the middle of the afternoon. Visitors kept posting the same images online. Empty tables, empty slot banks, a building that cost $3.7 billion struggling to fill a room. By May 2025, the layoffs had reached the casino floor. 60 dealers were let go in a single move. Not executives, not managers, the people who had signed on because this place felt like the beginning of something. A resort hemorrhaging money, workers cleared out. Leadership walking away. That alone would have been enough to define the Fontainebleau story in year 2. But none of that is what sent shockwaves through the city. What did was a document that was never supposed to leave a private office, ending up in the hands of regulators on an otherwise ordinary afternoon. What was written inside it changed the entire conversation about this casino overnight. To understand why Soffer refused to walk away, you have to understand what it took to get that building open in the first place. He purchased the land in 2000. He broke ground in 2007. Then the financial crisis hit in 2009 and killed the project when it was 70% complete. The Blue Glass Tower sat dormant on the north end of the Strip for over a decade. Not demolished, not repurposed, just standing there, empty. Visible from almost every point on the Strip as a daily reminder of what had gone wrong. Carl Icahn bought it out of foreclosure for $150 million. Stripped it bare, sold it. Other developers came in and tried to finish what Soffer had started. None of them could do it. Soffer watched all of it from the outside. He eventually got the building back. He spent $3.7 billion finishing it. He turned that empty skeleton into the tallest casino resort in Nevada. On December 13th, 2023, he finally opened those doors and stood on the red carpet while Cher and Kim Kardashian walked past. And Justin Timberlake performed inside a building that had spent 14 years as a cautionary tale. That night felt like a victory, 23 years in the making, which is exactly why everything that followed hit the way it did. Because the man who spent 2 decades refusing to let this building die is the same man now staring down a federal investigation, a gutted leadership team, and a casino floor that cannot find its footing. When you know what it cost him to get here, his next move starts to make a very different kind of sense, or a very dangerous one. The executive departures came first, and they came fast. The chief operating officer was gone within 30 days of opening. The chief marketing officer followed. The senior vice president of casino operations walked out behind them. 3 of the most senior people in the building, 1 month in. Sources who worked inside kept saying the same thing. Ownership was reaching directly into day-to-day decisions. People hired to run things were being overruled. Positions were being filled through personal relationships rather than experience. The word that kept coming up was nepotism. When the people running a building keep leaving, it is worth asking who told them to leave. The financial picture was just as damaging. The casino was burning through $400,000 every single day. The gaming floor that was supposed to pull high rollers away from Wynn and Encore was sitting quiet, with wide open tables and empty slot banks. a $3.7 billion resort that could not find its crowd. Then, in May 2025, came the move that made it impossible to ignore. 60 table game dealers were laid off in a single cut. These were the people who had shown up every shift since opening night because they believed this place was going somewhere. That is when the rest of the strip started paying very close attention. Because a casino that lays off its dealers is not trimming fat, it is running out of options. And what was about to surface inside a government hearing room would make even that look small. 3 weeks after those layoffs, the Nevada Gaming Commission gathered for what was supposed to be a routine licensing hearing. It was the kind of procedural meeting that happens dozens of times a year in this city. Nobody expected anything unusual. Then a commissioner started asking questions nobody in that room was prepared for. Inside the background materials for the hearing, a reference to an investigation had been left in by mistake, marked confidential. Someone had failed to remove it before the packets went out, and now it was sitting in front of every person in that room. The investigation was into potential violations of federal anti-money laundering laws. The allegation was specific. State gaming agents had discovered that Fontainebleau management had denied credit to a high-end customer. That decision was then overruled by ownership. Regulators believed that overruling a credit denial without proper authorization could constitute a violation of the Bank Secrecy Act. Maurice Wooden, the current president of the property, said he had no knowledge of any investigation. Gaming Control Board Chairman Kirk Hendrick immediately shut the discussion down. This is currently under investigation and is therefore confidential by law. That was the end of it officially, but the information was already out. The Fontainebleau now sat alongside Caesars, MGM, Wynn, and Resorts World as a Las Vegas operator facing money laundering scrutiny. Those properties had paid fines ranging from $5.5 million to $10.5 million to close their cases. For them, the timing had been painful but manageable. For the Fontainebleau, it landed in year 2, during layoffs, during an executive exodus, during a stretch when the property could not absorb a single additional piece of bad news. Wooden was granted a 2-year limited license. The investigation remained open. And then Jeffrey Soffer made his move. With the federal investigation open, a leadership team in pieces, and a gaming floor that could not find its crowd, Soffer announced that Fontainebleau Development had purchased 5 additional acres of land directly south of the casino. The price tag was $112.5 million. Not a restructuring plan. Not a response to the investigation. Land. He said publicly that the acquisition underscored his confidence in the Las Vegas market, that the property was already seeing positive and encouraging results, that the Fontainebleau era in Las Vegas was just beginning. To anyone watching from the outside, that statement read as either vision or denial. There is very little space between those two things when you are burning $400,000 a day. But this is the part of the story that gets overlooked. The people debating his land purchase are not the ones who showed up every shift since opening night. They are not the 60 dealers who built their livelihoods around the promise of that casino floor. They're not the executives who left not because the opportunity was bad, but because they could not do their jobs. Las Vegas does not reward sentiment. It rewards revenue. The Fontainebleau is one of the most physically extraordinary casinos ever built. The building is not the problem. The decisions being made at the top of it are. Jeffrey Soffer spent 23 years and everything he had to open those doors. That kind of history does not make it easier to see clearly. It makes it harder. The investigation is still open. The license clock is running. The gaming floor is still quiet. And somewhere on the north end of the strip, 5 new acres are sitting empty, waiting to find out which version of the story turns out to be true.